All right. Hello and welcome to our review on The Last Jedi. Um, so, first, I want to start off this review by asking everyone's overall thoughts on this film. I don't want to get too negative right away, but let's just start off with Justin's thoughts.
Okay. So I came into this film with a lot of hype, and needless to say, it didn't necessarily meet my expectations in the way I wanted it to. However, there were some bright points in this film that we'll discuss later on. Um, you can really see the sense of direction in Ryan Johnson, as opposed um, um, I'm blanking, as opposed
J.J.
to
Abrams.
J.J. Abrams in this film. So they had really different ideas, which I think really hurt the film in terms of him setting things up for Ryan Johnson to do with what he will, and he did with what his vision was. Um, had some interesting aspects of the film, but overall, this is, in my opinion, one of the weaker films in the whole Star Wars saga. Um,
Mm-hmm.
of every trilogy. This is probably with the exception of Attack of the Clones, this is my least favorite film.
Yeah. Michael?
So I actually have quite the opposite feeling. So he said it's his second least favorite. This might shock some people. It's my second favorite after Empire Strikes Back. Now, when I first saw this movie, I had the same thing. I was hyped. In some ways, it does kind of fail, but still, I can look past those things. What happened? Yeah. So when it first came out, I was excited. I remember seeing it. I remember coming out, loving it, and being absolutely surprised about how much people were shitting on it. I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed it. I liked some of the aspects of it. I liked what they did with Kylo, especially in this movie. I like. I mean, we'll get to it later. The things he does, and yeah, I just thought it was really solid. It does have its dips, but I really enjoy this movie.
Yeah, on that
Yeah.
point, real quick, um, what you said about Kylo Ren, I think Kylo Ren is the only reason I somewhat enjoyed this film.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, as far as my thoughts go, I feel like this one, when I saw it in theaters, when we were walking out, me and Andrew were talking about it with you, Justin, and we kind of felt split on it. Like we didn't know what to think of it at first. Like I think we both agreed. We were just kind of like, it was pretty good. It was okay. And then as time went on, my opinion started, declining because, you know, I could admit that the film is competently shot and competently helmed, but
It looks great. Yeah.
the thing that bothered me was just not because I was projecting my own expectations onto the movie, because I have to evaluate the movie, not my expectations of what it should have been. But I felt like the subverting ideas that the film was going for, like the subverting the expectations, I felt like it was the wrong choices. Like those are the ones that were like things that were set up in the previous film were just like thrown away in the second in this one. I mean, like I just felt like it just did a disservice to the last film in a lot of ways. It felt like a tug of war between the directors. Like one guy wants to do this thing and then the other guy wants to do another. So, and when you have a second film in a trilogy, this is supposed to be a bridge, not because we talked about it in the original trilogy stuff where we were talking about the second film being a bridge to the final. This one felt more like, let's do our own thing in this one again. So it was kind of like it was almost a reboot all over again.
That's one of my criticisms. I really like it as a movie as its own, but as a middle in a trilogy, it doesn't it doesn't do its job really. It kind of sets it up in a weird spot.
Yeah,
that negatively impacts the next movie. But when I just look at, I'm just looking at it in this movie.
yeah. If you think about it as just a movie on its own, I can see where Michael is coming from, but I'm really judging it on the fact that this isn't a Star Wars story film. This is a part of a trilogy that is vital to, like, the stuff they discussed in this film. I feel like not only were some of the ideas, in my opinion, most of the ideas that they had for some of these aspects that JJ brought into light wrong and like just weird, but this was something that could have been in another media format. Like it could have been like, I don't know, a comic book or a video game. Like it didn't have to be like a whole trilogy movie based on this. I don't know. It was just really interesting. I think one of the most interesting parts of it is that there was no time jump between this one and the last one.
I think that's
which isn't bad. It isn't bad. It was a good idea and almost kind of necessary because Rey's meeting, Luke Skywalker, and we kind of wanted to see how that goes.
Yeah.
But it was just, I don't know. It was just weird. It's like, it didn't feel like a trilogy movie to me. It felt like a side story, a side jump, and it really wasn't that bridge that we needed.
Yeah. Well, what I felt like a lot of people tried to take away from this movie was they were trying to say that a lot of our characters got a lot of character growth in this one, as far as like a character like Poe, for instance, with his because in the first one he was kind of like roguish, a maverick, but in this one he kind of had to get some humility in order to be a leader,
Yeah. Which was fair. I think Poe had a lot of good growth in this film. And I think Kylo Ren had the best growth in his film. This is why this film is just like, it has some of the greatest parts of Star Wars, but it has some of the worst in the same movie for me. And that's just what really turned me off to it. Because I love the growth Kylo Ren had in this film, and it really cemented him as my favorite character in this film.
Yeah.
However, there are just some other things I could not get past. Like, I just had really big issues with Leia flying through space. Can we just put that out there right now? I don't care how strong you are in the Force. You're dead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But in Rebels.
Listen, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear about that, dude.
About that scene. A lot of people say it looked like Mary Poppins flying through space or something, right? Yeah. But what I took from that was a direct shot from Superman Returns. When Superman's floating through the sky and he's dead, he's in space, and then he comes back, he opens his eyes and flies back down to Earth. That is exactly what happened in Superman Returns.
Yeah.
So
and then just also say rest in peace, Akbar, in that scene.
Yeah.
They that whole scene where where the First Order is like destroying the capital ship. They got rid of Admiral Akbar and never mentioned it. Like, he died on that bridge.
They do mention it, but it's
like, oh yeah, he was on there.
It's like he was in there too.
It's not like he was like literally one of the best admirals in not only the rebellion, but in the resistance as well. Oh, he's gone now. You know what I mean? Like, come on, give my boy Admiral Akbar some respect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the whole subplot of the film, where it's literally them running away in the vastness of space because their hyperdrive is broke. They're running away from the First Order, and the First Order can't catch up.
Well, it works. It's just they can track them.
I just find that so dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, though. You think at some point somebody would develop the technology.
Not only, okay, they can track them, I get it, but like the whole part where like, oh, we can move at a certain speed that's quicker than them so that they can't catch up. Like, come on. That whole subplot was, for me, the best part of the movie was literally the ending. And that's not a good thing, because there's things that happened in the end where I was just like, this didn't, satisfy me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just had so many issues with like that subplot in general, and also the subplot where they go to Canto Blight. Like, it was almost
my other part.
In my opinion,
my other negative, yeah.
They just wanted to show off. Yeah, they just wanted to show off another planet.
Well, the whole story arc with Finn and Rose Tico.
Well, also
was just,
Finn,
it didn't pay off. There was setup, but no payoff.
And with Finn, they kind of put him in the same spot he was in the like. So how do I say this? They kind of take away kind of some development he has in The Force Awakens, where he
Yeah.
just wants to run away.
They were
Because I
backpedaling
feel
on
like,
his
yeah,
character.
he starts out wanting to run away like he did in The Force Awakens, and I felt like he had moved past that. Once he fights Kylo with the saber,
Yeah.
I
You'd
thought it
think.
was unnecessary to just have him
In
want
this
to run
one,
away again.
his relationship with Rey should have progressed in some kind of way, because
It
that was
didn't.
set up in the last film.
They didn't even.
Then they decided, let's take this in a different direction. Let's pawn him off onto another character. And Rose is not a Jar Jar Binks. Everyone says she is like some Jar Jar Binks, but
Listen, it wasn't
problem
her.
is-
This is writing. This
Yeah,
wasn't her as a person, or necessarily acting either. She did a great job.
Yep.
The issue was the writing of her character, and this love thing. Like I said, it happens.
it didn't work.
It didn't work. It was almost forced upon. Like in the
It was
next
weird.
film,
The kiss was just weird.
so weird.
It was.
It was
weird.
so weird.
yeah.
I don't know. I think another issue I have is I'm not as strongly felt on this one as most people with Luke Skywalker. Like there are some things with him that like I could get why he was this way. And there's
Yeah.
some things I was like, why did he do that? You know what I mean? Or the way he died. A lot of people were upset about the way he died. I was kind of fine with it. Like
Yeah.
that's honestly like what he would do, and is honestly the best thing he could have done. Like he's not gonna literally, he said it himself, he's not gonna show up with a laser sword and face down the whole First Order. Like that makes sense.
And
what
I felt like that was kind of directed at me because I remember when the first trilogy was coming, the new trilogy, I want to see Luke cutting down all these stormtroopers. And he's like, what do you think? I'm going to cut down all the entire First Order? And I was like,
yeah,
oh, yeah, I guess you wouldn't.
Yeah. And
you know what I mean? Like that made sense. I just didn't. One thing I didn't understand was it really turned me off in the beginning where he just throws
That was
the lightsaber.
Sorry, yeah.
I should
That
comment,
was
though.
comedy's sake for like, it was forced.
I should comment that
Oh my gosh.
in the original trilogy with Yoda starts off as an old hermit that's reluctant to train Luke at first. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of within
Mhm.
this movie's wheelhouse. Like they're
I
trying to
see-
do the same thing.
No, I see your argument, but at the same time, it was different because Yoda was playing an act. It wasn't that he necessarily didn't want to train him. It was that he was testing him to see if he's even worthy of being trained. With Luke, it was different. It was like, I don't even want to deal with you. You know what I mean? It wasn't that he was testing her for anything. He was just like, I don't even want to deal with this. Like, I'm throwing my lightsaber and my father's lightsaber before him that I lost in a confrontation when I figured out. Like, that was a pivotal moment when he lost that lightsaber. And this is the first time he's seeing it since then.
Yeah.
It had no emotional impact on him whatsoever. He just throws it. No, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but
That just
This
That
plays
was
into
like-
the whole thing that we were talking about earlier, the setup and the payoff, you know? This movie
But the
fumbles the
thing
payoff.
is, yeah, it is terrible payoff. The thing is, with that moment, turned me off for the entire film. It was really it. That's really what did it for me.
Yeah, same
honestly.
thing with my dad.
I don't know. I had issues with it. Even when Luke, first started to teach Rey, he was just, he
My
just
dad-
wasn't Luke. You know what I mean?
My dad
Not
said
until
out
the
loud.
end. Not until the end when he turns.
Yeah,
he turns his, he changes his ideas. But.
My dad said out loud during the Leia scene, "What the f?" Like he was freaking out in theaters. He was looking around, and then he just sunk down into a seat after that part. He
I don't
almost
know.
went to sleep in the theater. Like that's what my dad does when the movie is basically over for him. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't just leave; he'll sleep in the theater, and you know that, Justin. Remember Mad Max?
Yeah.
That's good. I won't get into that, but I will bring up, if we're talking about the negatives on this one, Holdo should have just told everybody the plan. No
You
reason.
should.
I thought they were going with some plot that she was going to be a spy or something. Turns out she was just dumb and didn't tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That bothered me.
Well, that plays into the whole thing that I was talking about earlier with Poe. Like everyone tries to say that he had some character progression, like he was wrong to be doing those things, to be questioning authority, but she didn't tell him the plan. So
He
obviously,
should have
I
just
felt like
told
when I was
everybody.
watching the movie, he's doing all the right things that I would do. I'd be like, "What the hell? Just
Yeah.
help me out here. Tell
Hmm.
me the plan."
Yeah, I found nothing wrong with that. He acted in the way you'd expect someone in that situation to act, and he does have character growth actually in this film. I think. I think he goes a little backwards in the next film, but we can talk about that later. Um, but yeah, I have no problem with his character in this film, like other people did. It made sense, and like he stepped up to the plate when he had to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think Ryan Johnson kind of dodged a lot of bullets here with questions that we should have had answered but didn't.
Yeah.
One thing that comes to mind is, first of all, the reveal of you thought we got a hint of like who Rey's parents could be when she goes into the water cave thing and touches the mirror and just
That
sees
part's always
herself.
weird. That
It was
part's still
weird.
weird.
It was weird, but like it made sense because
Yeah.
Luke had his thing on Dagobah and she had her thing on Octu.
Yeah.
I had no problems with it. Like, okay, I guess we're not getting this answered, but it was just another disappointment in stuff like we're not getting answered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Another big thing is like,
Well,
who
they
the
did
hell?
kind of try and answer it, and he said nobody. They didn't matter. Like it doesn't
Yeah,
matter who they
that
are.
too. That too. Like it didn't matter. Well, turns out it freaking does because the next film. You know what I
I know.
mean?
Yeah. That's what I was
But
talking about,
it's
the
like
tug of war
it's just
between
the
the
next
directors.
film. Yeah, the next film is just literally a retcon of the previous film, and that's
Even the
really
lightsaber.
what damaged the film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing with Snoke, we don't learn who he was
I didn't
or
care.
what he was until the next film.
Ryan Johnson
think-
didn't care.
He didn't
I didn't
care.
Threw
care.
him away.
I didn't care. I thought
I don't necessarily find it bad that he died. I actually enjoyed that aspect of Kylo Ren killing him.
Yeah, that was a
that's
subverting expectations that I did like.
that's one of my favorite parts of the movie, and I'll tell you why. Because Kylo Ren being a Sith apprentice, your goal is to kill your master, basically. Yeah. Once you've gotten to be strong enough. So I had no problem necessarily with that, and that's why I liked Kylo Ren in this film because he took him down.
He became the supreme leader.
The supreme leader, and he kind of threw people. Not through people, but he put people in their place, with Hux and stuff.
Hux, yeah. He's like the supreme leader's dead, and Kylo's like, "Excuse me."
I'm
like,
the supreme leader.
Yeah, he chokes him.
You know what I mean? So that was
I
awesome.
think him killing Snoke.
Cool.
I think it's a little too telegraphed. Where I wish you would have just seen the lightsaber in the distance move instead of Snoke giving that speech, basically like, "Oh, nobody can kill me. I'm never gonna die. Like nobody will ever betray me."
Honestly, I don't. I think it worked in my opinion because
it works. I just wish it was a little bit more.
Snoke got his ass played, bro. Because of course he was reading Kylo Ren's mind, but he wasn't. He didn't understand that those thoughts that he was having were against him, not Rey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he kind of got played, which I was fine with.
Yeah. But we should talk about Kylo Ren's
But the
speech
Emperor,
to Rey.
it's kind of the same thing with the Emperor. The Emperor dies without really you knowing where he came from.
Well, we should talk about Kylo Ren's offer to Rey at the end of that fight, though, because I felt like that was a moment where it was almost like Ryan Johnson's way of, pleading to the audience, please forget the old ways of these movies. Let's go in a new direction.
I disagree, because it's the bad guy saying that. The bad guy saying, like, forget all the old shit. Like,
yeah,
he's making the bad guy say that.
It makes sense that he would do that. He's just trying to get her on his side again.
It felt kind of fourth wall breaking to me, in a way. It felt like he wasn't talking to her. It felt like he was almost talking to the Star Wars fans in general.
Kind of. I think you might be reading too much into it, but that's just my opinion. I don't think it was necessary, like, because he kept talking about kill the past or whatever if you have to, but that kind of makes sense because he's trying to kill his past in terms of like his relationship with his parents and with Luke Skywalker. He's just trying to forget it and turn more, to the dark side. You might be reading too much into it, but that's just me. I don't think it was really meant to have that much of an impact that it did to you. But
Well,
if it did, I mean, there's nothing
Well,
wrong
I'm
with
not
that.
saying that was subtext that I was reading into it. I'm not saying that's exactly what he was doing.
No, I know. I mean, it just hit me differently in that way. I just feel like he was just doing what his grandfather was doing before him, just trying to get or any Sith, honestly, just trying to get a learner.
Well, it was definitely like a strikes back type of thing where it was kind of like he was saying, "Join me, and we can rule the galaxy together." It was one of those types of moments.
Yeah.
So I think this movie is a lot like Empire Strikes Back in a lot of ways, because Finn and Rose do their own thing, while you have Rey is training on a planet with an old master, and then they come back and they have a final confrontation with the Emperor and everything. I mean, I guess that was more like you Return of the Jedi had the final confrontation with the Emperor, but I mean, this kind of has like a blend of those two movies together.
Yeah, I can see that. It would have been fine if it wasn't a trilogy.
I mean, Porgs are kind of like Ewoks in a way,
They're much better than the Ewoks.
Honestly, I have no problem with the Porgs. Everyone's like hating on the Porgs. I have no problem. They always introduce some cutesy thing to sell toys. Like, it's not really that big of a deal for me.
I had no problem.
So I had no problem with it, but I don't know. It was just a thing.
And they had to do something, or else there would be the little, what are they called, puffins? Because the reason there's Porgs like is because they couldn't get rid of the puffins in the shots.
Yeah.
So they're like, and then obviously they added them in some other scenes.
They look like otters / puffins. You know what I mean? They kind of have this
like, with a little bit of penguin in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another aspect I think we should talk about is another, I think, wasted potential with the character of DJ. What did y'all think about DJ? Like, I thought he was just literally there to serve a plot point to turn on our heroes. Like, he wasn't really much.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, I think that's exactly what he is, but I think it's fine. I like him as a character. He's kind of odd.
I thought it was forced, though. My thing about it.
I felt like it was a waste because he didn't go anywhere in the next movie.
Yeah,
like, did we even see him at all? Was he even referenced?
No, but I don't think.
I don't think they necessarily had to reference him or anything, but it's just weird. I don't know. I felt it was very forced, and it was like they could have explored. Sorry, no, they could have explored more with the whole like profiteering off of weapons and stuff, But I don't know. I just feel like they could have used him more in a different way. It just felt off to me, that character.
I'll say his speech was pretty interesting because, it's an interesting commentary for Star Wars to talk about, war profiteering and, because that's a lot of what happened during something like, let's say, World War II, Vietnam, the Iraq War, any of those types of things. Mm-hmm. Like there's always profiteering on both sides. War is a moneymaker and also a bringer of pain in a lot of ways. So
it was an interesting aspect. I think they could have fleshed out a little more.
Yeah. I just didn't like this little animal subplot. Like, did we really have to save the pets? Save the animals?
I don't think they look that good either. Like,
no, I think
just the design. They look weird.
Oh, no,
they should have saved the Tauntaun. Then I would have been cool with it.
That's like the low point of the movie, for sure. That little animal rescue.
Yeah, and then they bring in, like, this whole other aspect that's never explored again with the children.
Yeah,
who are there, and the one kid.
Yeah.
The broom kid.
And that's just a random kid. They're not going to do anything with that kid. I don't know what people were talking about.
No, they never did.
Of the next trilogy.
That's the issue, is they never did anything with that subplot.
Well, he's supposed to be like a representation of, the Force lives on. It's going to be in a lot of other people.
That's the issue, though, is in the next film, they don't. It would have been fine if in the next film maybe they explain like Rey's going to start a new order or something, a Jedi order or something like that.
He's
but
one of the kids.
They just. I mean, he didn't necessarily have to be one of those kids, but like it would make more sense of why they even showed that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just wasn't expanded upon, and that was like a big plot point because it was the end of the movie. He had the ring. It was like a whole scene dedicated to the kid. Like, okay, so maybe in the next film they're gonna try to rebuild the order, or at least by the end of it, try to rebuild some sort of Jedi order. But in the
Yeah.
same movie, they're like, oh no, the Jedi must die, which was another thing that Luke was saying. It was like I understand where he's coming from. Like he had some valid points about the Jedi, but that's not a reason that you kill the Jedi. Maybe just like reform it. Like you don't need to like, oh, we can't do that anymore. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like something that I don't know. I don't think Luke would do that. I think Luke got his awakening after Yoda came to visit him. Then it was kind of like okay,
I was gonna say we should talk about Yoda.
because when Yoda comes and destroys the tree, first of all, the Jedi texts are confirmed they weren't in there. I think Rey.
Yeah, they're on the
them.
Falcon. Yeah.
Yeah, Rey took them,
Mhm.
but like his point to them not necessarily being of importance to the
Yeah.
extent that Luke thought. It's like he says it himself. Like they weren't page turners. They weren't interesting. Like you can make something new of this and like make a new Jedi Order, but like almost like to what I just said, like reform it, not destroy it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I think after that point with Luke, I understood a little better. But up until that point, he was just this grouchy old man who's like a shell of his former self in terms of like his morality. I don't know. He's grouchy and he didn't want to do anything, and he wasn't like that hero that we know and love.
Yeah.
He redeems himself slightly, but in the end, it's just like, did they really have to make him like that? Even Mark Hamill himself didn't agree with the direction of his character, which was sad to see.
Yeah. I gotta say, at the end of Force Awakens, I kind of jokingly said to myself, wouldn't it be funny if he threw it over his shoulder? And that's exactly what Ryan Johnson decided to do in this movie. So a joke becomes reality, and it kind of annoyed me in a little way. But this is kind of what I expected for Luke in this movie. I imagined he'd be kind of grumpy. There has to be a reason why he's secluded on an island, So that's sort of what I was imagining. But the execution of the first scene with him, that's not what I liked. What should have happened was I felt like he should have took the lightsaber, took a look at it, and then handed it back to her, and then she'd be kind of confused by that, and he walks off. That would have been a better play for the audience because when we see him throw it over his shoulder, it looks like a joke.
It looks like a joke.
It was supposed to be a joke.
Yeah, but
well, of course, but that's a bad payoff to the setup in the last movie.
I think that was the way you said it, Jared, I think it would have worked more for me, honestly. Because it kind of sends a similar message, just not as, harsh. Like, and it's also something that he, as a character, I don't believe Luke Skywalker would do. I don't think he'd do that. But that's just me.
Well, I mean, we also have to get into the whole thing about, because you just said that you don't think Luke Skywalker would do something like that. There's another scene in this movie where Luke Skywalker does something he probably wouldn't do, and a lot of fans have said he wouldn't do.
He milks the animal.
Well, no, not that one, not the walrus scene. I'm talking about the scene where he almost kills Kylo Ren. I mean, we see it from two different perspectives, but either way, it goes down the same way.
Yeah.
I don't know. He doesn't really. Oh no, go ahead.
No, I can see where. Okay, that didn't. It didn't bother me as much as other people, just because we're all human, and I can see where he had a human moment to where like. Okay, so if you see it from his point of view, it's a little less. It's probably more realistic. But like from his point of view, he can see he instantly regrets his decision. It wasn't like, I'm gonna follow through with this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So. After understanding that and knowing that, okay, this is just a human moment of him making a mistake, which unfortunately led to the demise of his little order he was forming, and the demise of Kylo to the rise to the dark side for him. I can see where it came from. I didn't have that big of an issue with it, and Kylo was kind of using that as fuel to turn Rey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was kind of using it for his own benefit, almost twisting it in a way. But to him, it wasn't twisting it because that's what he experienced. But it was different than what Luke experienced and how he felt about doing it because he instantly regretted it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I feel like people criticize that, they look at it, it's like they're looking at it from Kylo's perspective instead of what actually happened. People always say, oh, well, he tried to kill Kylo, but he
Mhm.
really didn't. He thought about it, and which, he almost killed Vader out of rage. That's kind of way different,
Mm-hmm.
but,
Yeah.
he instantly regretted it, like he said, and then he's just staring at him like, oh, shit, what have I done?
Yeah.
But, yeah, I
Yeah.
think most people that criticize that it's like they have Kylo's version as the true version where he's about to kill him.
Yeah, I feel like that what happened in that scene was a lot of people were thinking of the little Hitler scenario where if you could go back in time and stop and snuff out evil, that's what you would do. You would kill little Hitler. So in that scene, people are thinking, oh, that's what Luke is trying to do here. He's gonna kill Kylo Ren, snuff out evil. Because Kylo Ren's gonna be the rise of a new empire in a way. So I think that's what a lot of people took from that, but I honestly understand where Luke was coming from at that moment, when you have years of peace happening and then you see somebody developing into, something bad. I can imagine, seeing it go down because Jedis are very, they have good foresight. I don't know whether they can see the future or not, but I'll say that he probably foresaw that Kylo Ren becomes what he is now,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of what was happening there. And it
Yeah,
worked for
like
me.
like the Jedi before him, he kind of cemented. There's one thing about the future. If you can see the future, there's like theories of your actions actually cementing what is going to happen of what you saw. And it happened with, Anakin when he saw Padme dying at childbirth. His actions to save her ultimately led to what he envisioned, premonitions of the future. You
Mhm.
can't change it, you know what I mean? So it's the same thing with Luke Skywalker in this situation. He saw what Kylo was doing and what he was going to be. And his actions cemented Kylo Ren where he was going and what he was going to become.
Yeah.
So I don't have an issue with that. I think we should probably hit the last part. We should probably hit the Battle of Crate and then give our final opinions.
Do you want to start with that or
Yeah, I can.
Michael?
So
I don't have much to say. I just think it looks cool, great with the salt.
there's just a lot that happened in that final battle.
Oh,
I guess
yeah.
So like in terms of Kylo Ren
Yeah.
against Luke Skywalker,
I wasn't thinking
Force
that far
Vision,
ahead in the fight.
Yeah,
I was
I'm
thinking
thinking
about
like
the beginning part.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that part because that
Oh,
part was
okay,
very.
okay.
It had a lot of mixed opinions, but I think that part was a strong point in the movie.
I really
Um,
liked that part, yeah. With
I
Kylo.
like the way Luke went, because that takes a lot out of you having to do that, and it's not something that a lot of people can do.
Well, Kylo tells Rey, he's like, you can't be doing this, it would kill you,
Yeah,
earlier in the movie.
yeah, and it was Snoke all along.
Yeah.
Just shows testament how powerful he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Luke does it, helps the Resistance get away.
Yeah. And he forces himself too hard and then he dies.
Yeah, and then he goes. But, there wasn't much, honestly, for his character else to do other than his interaction with Leia, which he did. So he kind of served his goal. I mean, it's sad to see him go, but, I mean, that's how I would want him to go. I wouldn't want him to go any other way. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't want him to get cut down by some Kylo
I thought it
Ren.
was a fine ending. I liked when he said, "See you around, kid."
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know
liked
a lot
him.
of people had a problem with it, but I
Yeah,
liked
some
it.
people had the problem with him like dusting off his shoulder. I thought
Yeah.
it was a humor that worked.
Yeah.
'Cause, you know,
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
he's
see
just
you around
taunting
kid.
Kylo. Yeah,
And the see you around kid's like
Han.
Han, basically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's kind of
Taunting.
playing
Yeah.
games. But
Yeah. And we have to talk about, before this thing ends, the whole, Finn and Rose Tico kiss at the end.
yeah,
Just
with the
awkward
battle,
and
it was
forced.
just. Yeah, I think we've kind of hit on it. Like you said, Michael, it was awkward, it was forced, and it
And then
wasn't
that
like
line.
it wasn't.
Even
It
Finn's
wasn't a
face after it
relationship.
happens, he's like,
He's confused. Like you can
so
tell, even he's confused. Like,
Whoa.
It's like,
yeah,
And
it's
in
a
the
shame.
next movie, he just says, "Oh, okay, see you later."
yeah, bye.
Honestly, yeah, and that's probably why Rose didn't have such a big role, because everyone hated that character, unfortunately. But
And
Yeah.
kind of like Jar Jar, unfortunately, they kind of took it out on the actress.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it
I feel
was-
so bad for her.
Yeah.
It was just bad writing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, more Death Star tech shows up, which, it's not a planet killing, it's more of a wall breaking, but
Yeah.
it makes sense. They would try and miniaturize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just got to get a Death Star reference in every movie, though.
What did you guys think of the Holdo maneuver?
It looked awesome.
Looked awesome.
Yeah.
It looked.
sound-
I would
amazing.
say the same thing.
Yeah.
She made a sacrifice, and I mean, it made sense. I wish, like you said earlier, I wish she would have told everyone about it, but it is what it is.
I think
So-
that was a last second thought, though. Like, I don't think that was her ultimate plan the whole time. Like, a
Yeah,
lot of
I
people
know.
keep saying that, but, that should be your last resort, not your first idea.
Well, yeah, it was when she saw the transports starting to die. Because if she did it right away, then they would have known something's up. Like, they're not just going to kill them all selves. She was hoping they keep following her until she ran out of fuel. And by that time, they're either on the planet getting transported away by allies or something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just an awesome scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was one of the strong points. Like the ending of this movie is where all the good stuff happens, in my opinion.
Yeah. And we should comment about Carrie Fisher passing. This is her last film, sadly. So we should probably comment about it.
Yeah, I mean, she was in the next, but of course it wasn't. It was all reused stuff. So, and honestly, unfortunately, the film suffers because of it, because you can tell. But they
Yeah.
did the best with what they could. It's unfortunate that she had to, she passed when she did.
Yeah.
But she'll live on through these movies. She
Yeah.
didn't do a bad job. So.
Sorry. What were you about to say?
I was gonna say she was a very strong point in this film, in the
Yeah.
whole trilogy, really, because she was really what everyone held on to, the anchor. She did what she did best. She was a leader. So
Yeah. And I should comment that her daughter was actually in this one, and she's in the next one, Billy Lord.
yeah,
So
yeah, Billy Lord.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I just felt like I should say that. So let's wrap this one up and give our general opinion and overall thoughts. So for me, I think this one was it was a messy one for me, and I feel like for some people it was a great entry into the series, but it's overall kind of messy for me. But if you like it, that's fine. You want to go, Justin? Quick thoughts.
Yeah. Quick thoughts. It had more wrong than right for me. So if I were to give it a score out of 10, I'd give it like a 6.8.
Okay, Michael.
I'm higher on this than most people. It's probably like a 9.4. I'll take some points off for not setting up the next one quite how it should have.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. It's the one I've watched the most since it's come out.
All right. Well, thank you to anyone who's joined us on this one, and we'll see you in the Rise of Skywalker review.